Today, Planet of the Apes is a long-standing media franchise consisting of films, books, TV series, comics, and more. In 1963, it was a French novel, and by 1968, it was a film that shocked audiences. Loosely adapted from the sci-fi novel of the same name by Pierre Boulle, Planet of the Apes follows astronauts who land on a planet inhabited by non-human apes with human-like intelligence. The novel was adapted by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling of the Twilight Zone fame, and directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. At the time of its release, the movie was a success, and its ending remains one of the most shocking twist endings of all time. There is a lot to be said of a society built by orangutans, gorillas, and chimps, but there is more to be said about the film's allegorical nature and why, after all these years, we are still attached to the story of Planet of the Apes.
Hello and welcome to the Quiet Riot. If you are new here, I'm Ainsley, and this is where we dive a little deeper into film, television, and media. Today, we're discussing Planet of the Apes, which I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, but I hadn't seen this film until fairly recently. I have, of course, unfortunately seen the one from like 2001 or something, because I was like a kid then, so that was the one that came out while I was a kid. And oh boy, I don't really remember it very well, but what I can say is it sucked. Was that Tim Burton? That was Tim Burton, right? Ooh. Anywho, the more recent trilogy was really good, and I also really like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I going back and watching the original film, even now, the what they did with that movie is absolutely incredible and still holds up to this day. As far as the what the film has to say and its allegory and the makeup and prosthetics of it and the way that these characters, like who these characters are, it does kind of suck that it's a little bit more primitive, and it's hard to imagine what it would be if it was like the original novel or if it was like the world that Rod Serling built, because he utilized the novel's initial setting, which is that it is a far more advanced society, more reminiscent of what the US looked like at the time that the film was made in the 1960s, but they didn't have the money to do it, so they ended up having to make it far more primitive. And it would be interesting to see what that would look like. In one of the sequels, they had the apes come to the past, so it looks a lot more like present time. But I seeing the apes in that society would have been would have been interesting, and we do get a chance to see that because there is a there is a comic book that was adapted from Serling's original script, which I really want to get my hands on. So, with all that being said, Planet of the Apes, great movie, absolutely love it. But we're gonna break it down for you, share some history and behind the scenes with you, my own personal thoughts, along with the critical reception of the time. And we'll get to know the movie a little bit. We'll get to know some of my own personal feelings towards the allegory at hand and what I see when I watch this movie and I dive a little deeper. Planet of the Apes was filmed and released during the height of the civil rights movement, and it would have had a deeper meaning at the time, whether it was meant to or not. The film takes a look at Taylor, a nihilistic astronaut who lands on an unknown planet with two other astronauts. He's the nihilist of the bunch, and he is forced to face some harsh realities when he is stranded 2,000 some years in the future on a planet, and he is alone because we have one character, Dodge, who's dead, and the other one, Landon, who's been lobotomized. Previously a man of privilege, Taylor is now at the bottom of the food chain, and he is mistreated and imprisoned by the apes. And having been shot in the throat, he is unable to speak, and all attempts to let the chimps know that he can talk is thwarted. Prior to the book's publication, producer Arthur P. Jacobs purchased the rights to the film. Blake Edwards was originally set to direct the film that it was produced The film produced by Warner Brothers, and the film was announced in 1964. Jacobs later convinced 20th Century Fox to take on the project after the success of his film What a Way to Go. Rod Serling, who was best known at the time for his work on the television series The Twilight Zone, wrote the original script. Serling's script, like the novel, featured the apes in a much more advanced society, and unfortunately, this proved to be far too expensive, so they decided to hire on someone else to make the society the apes lived in more primitive. They brought on Michael Wilson to rewrite the script, and he did keep Serling's original structure, but he rewrote all of the dialogue and he made it a lot funnier than Serling's original script, adding comedic quips. The ending of Serling's script remained intact, and it's really hard to imagine this film without that ending. As it packed one hell of a punch, but it also really speaks to the entire to what the film really means, and it starts a conversation, and how one can interpret it can depend on how you view the script. Are you in more of a position and do you see the world in the way that Taylor does? Are you more of a Dodge? Are you more of a Landon? Or I don't know, what's going on in that little head of yours? How are you seeing this ending? Director Schaffner did improvise some moments while on set, such as the hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil moment. Filming for Planet of the Apes began on May 21st in 1967 and went until August 10th. The film cost $5.8 million to make and was filmed on location in California, Utah, and Arizona. John Chambers created the makeup prosthetics for this film, and by God, can I just say that even in the ripe old year of 2025, these prosthetics are absolutely amazing. Watching this movie, it doesn't even necessarily seem old. Of course, nowadays we do in fact have CGI. We use it to our advantage, even much more than I would like. I mean, I do like the way the CGI is used in the more recent films, but watching this film and seeing what Chambers did, it's absolutely incredible, and his work needs to be discussed to an absolute high degree because what he did was absolutely amazing. And also props to all of the actors that were wearing these prosthetics. It takes a lot of talent to be able to really convey the emotion through expression, through eyes, through vocalizations when wearing these prosthetics because, they have so much makeup on. They have these prosthetics to make them look like orangutans, chimps, and gorillas, and yet they're still able to convey so much emotion and so much expression. So big props to John Chambers and big props to all of the actors who made these ape characters so real to us. Planet of the Apes was a critical and commercial success at the time of its release, and prior to the film's release, the word was already out. It was a must-see movie, but some may have avoided this film solely on the the title. It did really give corny science fiction of the 1950s variety with it, but let's be real, all of us little sci-fi hounds, we love a good title. I know I do. Attack of the Giant Leeches, hello. I married a monster from outer space. Yes, thank you. And it is weird when you hear Planet of the Apes. I mean, for me personally, Planet of the Apes does not sound as absolutely crazy as Attack of the Giant Leeches. No, it does not. But it does give a sense of something that's not quite as serious in terms of the way that this movie is truly executed and the story as a whole. But by God, they did it. They did make this film, and they did such a great job. And even though some might call it corny, I call it what do we call it? I mean, it's great. We love this movie. Roger Ebert shared the sentiment that this film, that he may not have seen this film had he not been a critic. But in his review, Ebert said of the film, "It's not great or significant or profound. Occasionally it is distractingly cute, as when the apes rewrite one cliche after another. Man See, Man Do, for example, or Two Apes, All Men Look Alike. But this is part of the fun. So is its much publicized ape makeup. It does look real by Jingo, and after a while, you do really start thinking of these apes as individuals. I agree with a great part of this, and I can understand the idea of the too cute cliche that's a bit distracting. But I do find this film great, and I do find this film significant, and I do find this film profound, and I'm definitely not the only one because one, we wouldn't be talking about it this damn much. Two, the recent trilogy as long as Kingdom of Planet of the Apes wouldn't be happening now too, because this story has so much to offer, and we'll talk a little bit more in that when we get to the Hollywood Reporter review. The film remains a critically acclaimed masterpiece, with the film's makeup maintaining its praise through the years. However, some aspects of this film have not fared as well. Charlton Heston's acting and some of the fight scenes have been more criticized in recent times. Does this surprise me? Absolutely not. In watching Charlton Heston's acting, I definitely think it fares a lot better in this film than it does in other performances of his I've seen. Acting styles have changed over time, and preferred acting styles have changed over time. It's very similar to beauty and styles of all kinds, and Heston's performances can be a bit difficult for me to watch, unfortunately. But I think it fares well for for the film itself and for the character of Taylor. And when it comes to the fight scenes, I really think of it in the same way that I do to say the more stereotypical Marvel fight scene. I'm not a big fan of those, and maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but maybe sometime in the future people will share that opinion and find that those are a little cheesy or weird or not that great. But hey, things change over time, and that's totally cool, dude. Not everything holds up the same way. Rife with symbolism and allegory, the Hollywood Reporter reviewed the film and said this: "This is a lot, bear with me." Eminently successful on its primary level, the film has its weaknesses in the crowding of allegorical meanings. At one time or another, the film deals with race relations, war and pacifism, church inquisition, Senate investigation and suppression of thought, sexual myth, the credibility gap in official statements of position, the selective deductive processes of historians, the generation gap, blind allegiance to status quo, the imperative right of dissent, social stature, and the caste system. As a means of mirroring the totality of civilization in the totality of another, this is certainly defensible. Since the film sets up an anti war stance at the onset and builds in an overwhelming symbolism at the climax, a number of tangential commentaries might have been sacrificed toward the unity of the theme, which in fact encompasses a good many of the other problems alluded to. I want to say this. I think at the beginning the film much more, instead of setting up an anti-war, it sets up more of an anti-colonialism and an anti-supremacy. And I think that that goes along with thoughts on war and pacifism and race relations, and all of this kind of comes together. And to be honest, I think the problem that I have with this review, though I can understand where they're coming from, and they're not necessarily saying that it's bad, but I do think that they overlook the fact that you're piecing these things down. They're using the caste system to build a society, and within that, class structure is discussed, which they don't actually mention here specifically, but that also comes with race, and there's so much more to that within the relationships. And yes, these things are all something that is touched upon, but I don't think it's overdone because they entangle pretty well, and we don't spend so much time just being, oh, here's this, let's knock it out, and then, oh, here, I can't snap, here's this, they all just mingle together, racism, sexism, classism, all of these things. The Guardian did not look too favorably on the film. A promising idea and yet ultimately too cute. It is one-to-one allegory, and this much of the film is spent exploring this not very rewarding vein. For example, the priests refuse to believe in the evolutionary theory that apes might just possibly have developed from man, and a nice young chimpanzee social worker's idea that our hero, Charlton Heston in his usual top form, might be a missing link is jeered as hearsay. Hello? Are knock knocky knock knock. Are you not living in the same world that we're living in? Like these people like that like still exist. Like in the 21st century, in 2025, this is the 2020s. Like people are still like questioning certain things that is like crazy to question. But I think that this the way that this film, like, I'm not saying that every aspect of this film is like top notch, and there may be things that seem a little too like not heavy, but yeah, a little too cute. Let's say too cute. So it's not bad. Like I don't think the way that it handles it is bad. It's not like it doesn't seem too much to me because, like I said before, things mingle dingle. I don't know. I think I'm salty with The Guardian, okay? I'm salty with The Guardian. I read one too many them sans dumb shit. So the belief that humans are inherently superior to other living beings is a theme that permeates through the franchise. Planet of the Apes, released in 1960 olds released in 1968, holds tight to this theme, introducing a time where humans are placed in the position that their fellow apes were in for so long. The actions taken by the apes are similar to the actions of humans throughout history. In the film, apes hunt down, imprison, and run experiments on humans. They lock them up in zoo-like cages. Now, this is something that's not really talked about a lot when referring to this film because it wasn't something that was talked about really at the time. I'm sure it was, but not to the same extent. And that is human animal conflict. One of the leading causes of death for some animals is human animal conflict. As the area in which animals live gets smaller and the places humans live grows larger, animals and humans find themselves interacting more. This leads to humans defending their homes from the animals. We know that the reason why animals encroach on our living spaces is because they call outside home. Humans overlook the boundaries that cause us to interfere with the space that they live in. While this isn't an intentional look at human animal conflict, it does shine through in the interactions between ape and human. And I think that goes a lot to what I was saying in regards to what the Hollywood Reporter was saying, because I can look at this from here, from like my perspective here in 2025, and look at this as an allegory for human animal conflict. And that's not intentional because that wasn't something they were really discussing at the time, but it still rings very true with specific interactions that exist within the film. And that's kind of what happens when you make certain decisions or you create a certain storyline is, yeah, you have the allegories in which you choose, and then you just have things that exist because of that. In the film, apes adhere to a caste system that sees the various species in different positions. The apes in questions are gorillas, chimps, and orangutans. The original film did not include bonobos? I want to say bonobos, though they would probably be put in the same position as chimps. In the film, orangutans hold political office, religious power, and represent bureaucracy. Chimpanzees are academics and scientists. They challenge norms and work towards scientific discovery. Gorillas work in the military, law enforcement, and do daily labor. If I were writing the script today, based on what we know the apes present in the film, I would switch the places of orangutans and chimps. I would also say that bonobos in there with orangutans because of the matriarchal society in which bonobos live in today. I see them working in childcare and other work that patriarchal societies have placed on women. Because chimps seem to closer to humans in temperament, it makes sense to me that they would be in more political and religious situations. Taylor is the white male protagonist of the film, and he finds himself at the bottom of the social chain. He's not only gets treated the way our fellow apes have been treated, but also in the way marginalized people have been treated throughout the world. Planet of the Apes was made and released at the height of the civil rights movement in the US. Since its release, many scholars and critics have brought up its allegorical nature, particularly how it depicts race in the context of Jim Crow and chattel slavery. The depiction of the caste system, the dehumanization of each other, and the humans depict the conflict between cultures, races, gender, all those that are othered. The historical context of the film puts into perspective the horrific treatment of people all over the world. Through an American lens, it depicts through allegory the treatment of Black Americans and the horrors of slavery. It is in the best interest of the oppressor to maintain their power over the oppressed. For Taylor, he is met with a new order, one that sees him in the position of lesser than. A caste system is not something that we have really used in the US, but its use in the film showcases the divide against races and classes in a way that would otherwise be harder to depict. We are able to see the way the world works through this caste system. When we come to the end of Planet of the Apes, we are met with one of the greatest twist endings of all time, one that shocked audiences and horrified Taylor. Since landing, he thought that he was on another planet, but the truth reveals itself on a beach when he comes across a relic from a lost world. The world in which humans were once the ape at the apex of the food chain. Partially buried in the sand is the Statue of Liberty. Taylor is not on some distant planet. He is on Earth, years in the future where human civilization has fallen and non-human apes rule the world. I've put a lot of thought into this ending and what I personally think that it means, what it means for Taylor, what does it mean as just a general ending for a film. And when I see the character of Taylor, he is very nihilistic. He has a very colonist mindset. He thinks of himself as superior and he has been taught that he's superior. I mean, this film was filmed in 1967, released in 1968 at the height of the civil rights movement, and in the world for centuries and centuries, white people have positioned themselves as an authority, as the top of the food chain, as the apex predator, as the apex, as whatever's up here, right? And so you get the character of Taylor who really sees himself in that way as an authority, and he's had all the privilege in the world, and then he's put in a really like horrible position, because that's horrible for anybody. It's like really really far in the future. He lands on this unknown planet where he is down here, and he doesn't understand anything. He doesn't know what to do. And then he finds that, hey, I'm on planet Earth in the future and this is what has happened. And we come to this realization with Taylor that the undoing of humanity, of humans, has been themselves. And we know that. Like, we know that then, we knew that then, we know that now, that humans' worst enemy is always going to be other humans. And we can see that in the way that we're just so willy-nilly about our wars and about all the other horrific things that we do. And I mean, I can see it now, like going around. Like, if you told me, really honestly, like in 2000 fucking years, that the apes are ruling the world, yeah, sounds about right. Um, So in terms of Taylor, like, I mean, could he go back in the future? At this point, we don't know. We don't know if that's back in the future. Back to the future. Can he go back to the future, guys? Can he go back to the past? We don't know that now. So for him, it's over. Like, what is he gonna do? I mean, I guess he can be with Nova, but like he knows in his lifetime that he's no longer gonna see the world the way that he did at one point. And the people that he's around, their minds don't work like his. Like, it's a completely different. So for him, like, I guess like his more like nihilistic view of things has been in some way like, yeah, like of course he's a freaking nihilist, but let's be real, because sometimes the things that nihilism, that with the existence of nihilism, can exist to the very things that can cause our world to become run by apes. I mean, I don't mind if like a bonobo was in charge, but I'm kind of worried about a chimp, because let's be real, they're pretty like aggressive in the same way that humans are. I don't know. There's a lot that can be said for this ending, and I'm very much of the opinion that human beings, that it's like showing that, hey, dude, like you, Taylor, human beings, they're not really so superior because they can cause their own downfall. And in fact, that they did. And the reason why apes rule this world is because humans are bad. So, did it say that yes, your nihilism is justified? Or did it just like say, hey, dude, like, if you don't if as human beings, if it tells its audience like, hey, as human beings, if you don't buck up, if you don't get yourselves under control, something like this could happen. I don't know. I don't know. Thank you so much for listening to me rant, rave, talk about, discuss, dive a little deeper, and completely lose the plot in my discussion of Planet of the Apes. This is a fun one. I really enjoy this movie, and I'm interested to actually check out its sequels. If you're interested in hearing me talk about those and kind of hear my thoughts, dive a little deeper, what have you, please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and would like to subscribe and ring that bell to be notified every single time I post, I would like to get into a routine again where I am posting at least twice a month. It depends, like, life has, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, life has sucked. Life has sucked a disgusting popsicle. But I'm hoping that things do get better and that I'm also able to just, because this is something that I love to do, and so I'm really hoping that I can get myself into a routine, because I'll find myself, I'll watch films and then I'll write stuff down and I'll start writing, and some that I plan out more than others. I've mentioned this so many times, really, and I'm sure that other people can relate to times where it's just like you can have so much in your head of what you want to do and you see it, and then life happens, shit hits the fan, and it just becomes really hard. So, my hope and is that I will eventually get to that point again. And if you want to, I don't know, pray, send out some good energy for me, I'll do the same for you. And I'll do that anyway. Like, I don't need that. Like, it's like, I'll only do that for you if you do that for me. Sometimes you just need a little jazzed, be a little jazzed, a little talked up. But no, I don't know. It's always good when I finally get myself to sit down and record, and then I edit and put it up, and I don't know. I love this. I love talking about stuff, and I love being a little nutty when I get on camera. I like when I'm that way because I feel like it just definitely feels a lot more comfortable, because sometimes I can feel very like just reading that, and like sometimes I'll go off on little things, but when I get a little crazy I feel like a lot more like myself and just generally more comfortable, and I need to do that more. Yeah. Anywho's, again, if you like it, like it. And if you have anything to say about Planet of the Apes, about this video, about the franchise, about anything, please do so in the comments below. Comments below, and put comment on this video. I like to hear from people. I like to hear from you. I'll give it a heart. I'll give it a like. I'll comment back. But yeah, I do have some more videos planned, some scripts written out. I'm hoping to actually knock out filming 2 videos this weekend. We'll see. Here's to hoping. But until next time, I hope that you are doing okay. You're doing the best you can. I'll see you next time. Bye.